welcome to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and with me, as always, is my good friend
Matt Runquist.
Matt. Hi.
Hi, Travis.
This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists or bands to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and then we come together on this very podcast that you are listening to right now to discuss it all. Oh, it has been a week, Matthew.
Oh man, it has been a week. What have you been up to?
I mean, honestly, I have to pull up my calendar to remember everything that I did this week because I knew you were going to ask me what I did, and I was like, oh, I don't remember a single thing. And but it started with I worked the Golden Globes as a stand-in on Monday, and here in LA, it has been a rainy, wet, cold week. And so after my regular stand-in job on a talk show, I took the bus over the Hollywood. So I in LA, I work in the San Fernando Valley, and then if you want to get over to LA, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills area, you have to go over the Hollywood Hills, right? So there is a bus that I catch right by the work I have in the morning, so that was very convenient. And it was going to be take one bus to Santa Monica Boulevard over the hill, take Santa Monica straight down to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which is where they do the Golden Globes. And I thought it was going to be very easy. And I'm on the bus going down Santa Monica, and suddenly we're in Beverly Hills, and the bus driver goes, all right, there's we're having a detour because, we can't go. The Golden Globes is shutting down Santa Monica Boulevard. And he turns off the road, and I'm like, oh, and I said, I'm going to the Beverly Wilshire. Is this the closest that you can get to it? Because suddenly we're heading away from there. And he goes, yep, this is the closest. And so I'm like, all right, I'll get off in the rain and walk almost a mile in the rain. And I don't have an umbrella or anything. I have a hood on my jacket. And so I get off the bus, and then the bus turns the direction that I was going and heads the way I was going. And I'm like, what? I could have gotten half a mile closer on the bus. Anyway, so I get to work and I am soaked to my skin. My feet are cold, and I have to go through like this COVID testing verification line and credentials. Like, security is super tight, even though this is Monday, that's the day before the event, so it's not like super tight, but it's still pretty tight. And so you have to go through this verification thing, get a wristband, and then go get credentials. So I have my little badge that says I'm okay to be there. And then we were rehearsing, and we were rehearsing like on the red carpet, because that's the show I was doing it for, was like this red carpet interview show. And we're standing on the red carpet, which is first not red, second soaked through, and they cover it with this plastic to try to keep it dry, but the carpet's already soaked. So you're really just, it was awful, and it was cold. It was fun in its way, but, and luckily one of the other people who was working there gave me a ride home afterwards. But it was an interesting day. And then, let's see, Tuesday I had an audition.
What I'm hearing from all that is that stand-ins don't get limos. That's what I got.
No, we don't. It is a SAG job, and I did actually find out this week that if I do this job enough, I can get a pension. Like if I can earn a pension by doing what I'm already doing, and I've already earned like 1/10 of my pension just from last year. So I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. But yeah. So then let's see. Tuesday I had an audition to do at Universal Studios Hollywood what I already did in Universal Studios Japan, and I did get a call back, but I didn't get any further than that, which was a little bit disappointing. But honestly, I've got so much going on, it's not even funny. Had I signed my book deal, my new publishing deal?
Yes, last week you had just signed your book deal.
That had just happened. Okay, so now I'm one of the things I did was the onboarding call with the publisher and their PR people, the marketing people, and the editor and all that were on this call, the Zoom call that we did. So, which was actually great for me to get an idea of what their business is like and how they do things, because they have a process which is nice, and it was good to kind of see what that process is.
It's not just one guy in a warehouse.
Exactly, which my current publisher kind of is. So it's nice to, I think, see that the new publisher has a little bit more going on. And let's see, we had a couple of writing sessions for the Idiot's Lantern, which is the sketch group that I do. We do a big show every year at Gallifrey 1, which is the world's largest Doctor Who convention, fan-run Doctor Who convention. And so we are doing a sketch show for that usually gets a couple thousand people in the audience. And so we're writing that. And that's really fun because it seems to be a really collaborative process this year where everybody is free to give notes on sketches and help make them better. So that's going well. I auditioned to be on The Price is Right as a contestant. So that's fun. I have no idea if that's going to happen.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
What?
The contestants for Price is Right are cast?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. For every game show. That's not news. Every game show has casting directors for contestants. It's not a scripted thing or anything, but they want to make sure that you have a personality and.
No, I understand. I did not know that though. When I was sitting at home as a child, with the flu or whatnot, watching The Price is Right, it was my thought that everybody who got on that show wandered into the studio in Burbank and then was selected out of the audience by Rod Roddy and called on down.
So 2 things about that. First off, back in the day when it was a whole before COVID, when it was a whole audience, you essentially did that. So you showed up to be an audience member in The Price is Right, and they kind of interviewed the audience while you were standing in line. I did go to The Price is Right about 12 years ago with a friend, and he got on and got all the way to the Showcase Showdown. But and what they did was they interviewed us in line, and he was visiting from out of town, and so they like stuff like that, and he got on. And so, yes, it was much more like that on The Price is Right, specifically back in the day. Once COVID hit, you can't have all those extra people in the audience, so they're doing much more of a traditional, casting of contestants. Interestingly enough, when I was working at Sprint, when I first got to LA, I helped Rod Roddy take care of his Sprint bill while he was in the hospital. Well, wait, don't laugh. He was in the hospital dying of cancer, I think. But he had racked up, he had been over his minutes. You remember when you used to have minutes?
I do not retract my laughter. Roddy's funny, and that's all there is to it.
He was, and I got to help him. I got to talk to him on the phone and help him through his.
Does he always have Rod Roddy voice, or was that a bit of a put on?
Oh, it's a bit of a put on, yeah. So I mean, you can hear his voice for sure when you're talking to him, and of course, this was almost 20 years ago now. But it was. Yeah, when you're talking, it's the difference between me talking like this and saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, come on down." There is a announcery-ness that you add to your voice, and I'm sure he did too. But anyway, so I had that happened this week, so the audition for that. Then on Thursday, I had this musical audition class. So we brought in a casting director who was who casts a lot of movie musicals. So, for instance, he cast the Wicked movie that's coming up, and so
was he a real class act?
I don't know if that's a pun that you're making,
because it was a class.
You just winked at me, but I don't understand. Oh, yes. I was like, yeah. Well, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes Travis doesn't listen to himself, and so.
More often I don't listen to you. But
I know that's the usual mode, right? That's the usual mode.
No, it is.
But
it's funny listening to this podcast over again when I listen to our episodes. I do realize that I miss you making jokes, or possibly as likely I hear you making a joke that's not funny and I just let it go instead of, what would you rather me do in instances like this where you make a pun or a sarcastic remark, but it isn't actually funny to me? Would you like me to call it out, or would you like me to ignore it? Just for the future.
I would like you to, I mean, I want you to do what feels natural, but also I want you to know that your sense of humor is wrong. So.
Because, well, it's funny, in my head, listening to the podcast, I thought I should have said something about it. I should have like given you at least props, acknowledgement for your joke.
Yeah, maybe we need like a pun button or something.
A
pun has been told.
The like that. Anyway, so no, Ryan was really cool. It was fun to be in the class, but the interesting thing about it was, normally when we do these casting classes, we have a scene that we perform, but this time we had to sing a song, or actually perform a song. So they wanted us to pick a song and perform it in front of the class, and so I did "Somewhere That's Green" from Little Shop of Horrors, and my friend Keith Hampton actually did a couple of voice lessons with me beforehand, and so I felt pretty well prepared going into the class. And I performed the song twice. The second time through, he had me really, like he said, the first verse, don't even sing it, just like speak it. And so I did a lot of that. It was interesting. It was a plus work, I did work all week. And then Friday was the first day off, and I went on a hike, because it was actually the first day that it wasn't raining here in LA all week. So I did a hike on Friday, another on Saturday. Then it started raining today, although I had another casting class today. Actually, this was a class with the director, who I was excited to meet. And yeah, so it's been a busy one, man.
Wow,
sure.
that is more than I have done.
Yeah, well, what have you done?
Well, I did.
I didn't mean for that to sound challenging. Like, oh yeah,
oh yeah.
What have you done lately?
What have you done this week? I believe I prefaced it with, I haven't done much.
No,
but
you did.
I did write and produce and perform another song that has been released on.
I saw that, and I loved the photo that you took for it.
Thank you. That was actually my wife that took that. But the bridge.
You have a talented spouse.
The bridge.
Isn't that the one through the grasses? It's black.
Oh,
and white,
that's actually. Oh, yes. No, that is my promo photo. Yeah, that's my promo photo, and and my wife took it. And that has the Milwaukee's Hone Bridge in the background, most famous from its appearance in the movie The Blues Brothers.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I didn't know that anything in The Blues Brothers took place in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's not explicitly in Milwaukee, but they were halfway through building that bridge. So the chase at the end of the movie that ends with the car going off the bridge, that is a real bridge that existed in real life here in Milwaukee, and they really drove a car off of it for that movie.
Just like in Speed, where they had the bus on the.
Just like in Speed. It's a little known fact, but most of the plot of Speed is from the Blues Brothers. So
yeah, it's an homage. It's a soft reboot of Blues Brothers.
Well, they wanted to change the gender of one of the characters and reboot it in a more inclusive way.
Well, I think the villain in Speed says he's on a mission from God.
Yeah,
and so
that was good. That was full marks for yes and in that one.
Thanks.
So yeah, let's talk about the music first this week, because we did the movie first last week.
The music.
That sounded a little bit like an accusation.
Listen. So the music was fine. So do you want to tell us a little bit about?
I'll tell you. HAIM is from
it's
the
spelled HAIM, like Corey Haim.
Well, it's HAIM, the Israeli Jewish. I'm not sure which language it is, because there's a couple of languages, but the Jewish word for life is HAIM, and that's what it's from. Three sisters raised in LA who played in their parents' cover band growing up. and then went to school and formed their own band, and have had a lot of success, especially with this album, Days Are Gone.
Tell me about this album. Is it their first?
This is their first album. They had released a couple of EPs, I believe, beforehand, but this was their first full album. And the success of this album was largely driven by the single The Wire, which I think is the second or third track on there.
It's the third track, yeah. So I listened to this on my hike on Friday, and it was a beautiful day. The weather was just a really pleasant day, and I was really excited to listen to this because you talked it up a lot. And so I started the first couple of tracks, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to I'll give you a heads up. I'm going to give this a very average score. I didn't especially love it. I didn't dislike it at all. I could easily listen to it. But I will say the word that kept popping into my head as I listened to this was overproduced.
Yeah.
I liked the vocals. I liked the melodies and that kind of thing, but I thought there were either too many instruments, too much modulation on some of the instruments maybe. I found myself wishing to hear a unplugged version. Mm-hmm. You remember when they used to do unplugged?
I do very distinctly remember when they used to do unplugged. It's really interesting that you should call that out. HAIM's live shows are sort of famous for being pretty different from their albums, from their recorded output. They're obviously all very competent musicians because they've been playing since a very young age. They're all actually multi-instrumentalists, although they apparently pretty much stay home when they're in concert. But their shows are like rock and roll shows.
You should send me one of their one of your favorite, like if you love The Wire, for example, send me a live or post a live version.
That's probably not a bad idea, but I think that is a really good point that this is very LA studio production music, right? Like, I don't want to say that they're not exactly industry insiders, right? Their parents weren't like, I don't know, Joan Baez and, Neil Young or something, right? Like,
sure.
But these are...
I don't know who one of those people is.
But, one of them went to the LA High School for the Performing Arts. Like, these are people who are well-versed in sort of the tips and tricks of the trade from a very young age. And, I think one of the reads that people have on HAIM is that it is sort of inoffensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's just that when you that thing when you're leaving the house and they say turn around and look in the mirror and the first thing that you see, take it off, right?
Yes, I do know.
I kind of wish that they'd done that with this music.
Yeah,
like
stripped it down a little more.
Just one thing maybe would have helped. Like maybe it was just one too many electric pieces of music or something. I don't know.
There's an interesting parallel here to my criticism of Empire of the Sun last week, where I wanted Empire of the Sun to be either bigger or smaller, and this would be like you're looking for something smaller, like strip it down to like the essentials of the song that you're trying to tell, the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, just a little bit more. And it's funny that you bring that up because listening to last week's podcast, I found myself having criticisms of your criticisms.
Oh, yeah?
Like stuff that I wanted to come back at you with. And but I wanted to watch it, and I haven't had a chance to watch it.
I was going to say, I guess you should have watched the movie then, Travis.
I was going to, yeah. But these guys, it almost, so in addition to wanting to see a little bit less, it was just a lot. We've given that criticism to others where it's just kind of, it was a little much, right? Almost in the way that young filmmakers are, where they don't trust themselves to be simple. to be what they are. They feel like you have to have all this other stuff on top of it to make it flashy and interesting. And it ended up just being a little uninteresting to me.
Sure, a little sterile. It's funny, not to bring everything back to the music production that I'm doing lately, but I do definitely notice my instinct to like add another layer, do more. And GarageBand or any DAW kind of encourages this, right? Because there's typically 32 or 64 or 128 tracks that you can add together.
Use DAW, and I've heard that before. What is DAW?
Oh,
again?
sorry, DAW is digital audio workstation. So the most famous of which is GarageBand, because it comes packaged with every Mac, but there's lots and lots of DAWs, and they're just a graphical way to move bits of music around and put music together.
Non-linear music production. Something.
Yeah.
Kind of like editing video, but with music tracks.
Yes. So, anyways, I think that I've completely lost track of what I was saying, and we're gonna have to cut this out.
You're talking about how easy it is to. You were talking about how easy it is to do too much.
Yeah, it's very easy to do too much, to fill up all the space. When sometimes the most interesting thing about music is the silence in between certain things, or the subtle interplay of just one or two instruments.
Right. I found myself thinking a bit about the Beatles and how essentially they had 4 instruments for their songs, and I would have liked to have heard some of these songs with only 4 instruments.
Yeah.
And just heard what it would have sounded like.
Yeah.
So I will say I did not listen to this one a second time through. And
wow.
That was partially because
wow.
which I have done on every one so far, and partially that's because I just couldn't have been bothered. I felt unmotivated to do so, but also it was busy. It was me being busy. If it had been nicer weather and I'd been going on more hikes, I certainly would have given it a second go.
Okay.
But
okay.
I didn't. So I just, and that's more of an admission than a condemnation. All right, that's me kind of like qualifying my review.
What did you think of their voices?
They were fine.
Yeah.
They were pleasant. You might be calling back to kind of my criticism of the Decemberists, where I actually didn't like the guy's voice.
I think you're pretty tuned in to whether or not you like vocals. I think you've mentioned it on Alabama Shakes as well. Decemberists.
Yeah. And so, and I think part of that though is that again these ladies covered up their vocals with too much other stuff,
too much sticky stuff all over everything. There's jam everywhere.
Okay. Well, bringing it to jam. Jam is fine. I thought you were going somewhere else with this, and I was like, all right, this is potentially a family podcast.
Hellraiser, 1987.
Anyway, I will say, yeah, exactly. So right off the gate with our gore fest. So I'll give HAIM a middle of the road score. A good. I'll say 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna go 6, but no, it's really average for me.
Okay. I would say that HAIM is probably a 7 for me. I really, really love the song "The Wire." And if you do get a hinkling in the little back of your brain that maybe I should have given this another chance, I would just throw "The Wire" on and see if that doesn't hook you a little better.
All right, I will do that. I will do that for you.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I value you and your opinion.
Oh,
I'm not gonna. I started.
I'm definitely not.
I'm not gonna do it right now.
I'm definitely not gonna say it back. That's for sure.
Oh, well, that's sad.
Guys, he sounds sad. Yeah, I mean,
I'm a little sad.
Oh, fine.
Wait,
I love you too.
Oh, thank you, Matt. So all right. Well, shall we let HAIM go?
Yeah, let's let HAIM go.
Great, because I really want to hear your take on the movie that I assigned you.
Okay, so the first thing we should do, actually not the first thing, but at some point we should record a tag saying there are major spoilers for a pretty recent movie upcoming.
Oh, well, we can say that right now. If people are listening to this and they get this far, just know that we're about to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, and there will be spoilers if you have not seen it.
Awesome. And you should definitely see it.
You should see it. You did. Yeah. So what has happened since we talked last is the Golden Globes happened, and this movie was nominated for Best Comedy and or Musical, but it was also nominated against the Banshees of Inisherin, which was also a very good movie, which was, I guess, a dark comedy. And what's funny is I don't necessarily think of either of these movies as being comedies the way that comedies are. You know, The Martian was nominated under comedy and musical for Golden Globes, so that means nothing. But it lost to the movie that I thought it should have won over. Like I loved Banshees, and I think Colin Farrell was great, and he won Best Actor, which was well deserved. But I think that my personal thought is that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best movie of the year, hands down. So, given that, tell me what you thought.
No pressure. I loved it. No, I loved it. Yeah, I really did. That's not. So sometimes I have a bit of a tone control problem, and it can sound like I'm being sarcastic when I'm not. But I absolutely, really, really enjoyed this film. I'm so glad you recommended it to me. It was really good. I actually had a little bit of a false start. I started to watch it in the mid-afternoon on a day when I was home, and dozed off about 10 minutes in. That's not because the movie was bad. That's because I'm old and sometimes I like to take a little nap, a little nappy nap. But so I got to watch the first 10 minutes twice, and it's funny because I picked up more just the second time of watching that, even having not seen any of the rest of the movie. And I will say it does maybe start a little slower than it needs to, or like if I have one read of this movie, it's that the thing, you know, the bit about how her life has not gone the way she wants it to on any level is a little, I didn't feel like that was super obvious. Like it was clear that her life was, you know, chaotic and difficult, but it wasn't, like there's a line in there very specifically about every time things could have gone in two different directions, yours went the worst way, right? And that was really the first time in the whole movie that I felt like that was true. Like I was like, oh, I mean to a certain extent, like people live, you know, depressing lives every day, right? Yeah. And well, so
that's the thing. Her life was maybe a little depressing, but also very normal.
Yeah, it felt like very normal, and so I guess I didn't really get, like, when you watch the first 10 minutes of Joe versus the volcano, you know that Joe is deeply depressed and that life sucks. It's almost it's hard to watch, right? Because of how intense it is, even though that's very much a comedy, right? And this was like, oh yeah, you know, lots of things are going on, and she's, you know, it didn't really read for me. But anyways, so I watched that, and then of course, you know, we dive into the movie, and the multiverse opens up, and it was incredibly impressive. I didn't find it terribly hard to follow either. Now I did follow your advice and set my phone down and watched the movie, and I do think that really did help, because there is a lot that goes unspoken in this movie, or a lot of it's in Chinese, and so you're having to read subtitles. They're switching back and forth between English and Chinese very fluidly. But I like Travis, I could sit here and talk for half an hour about specific things that I liked about this movie. I liked, we looked up the budget afterwards, $26 million. They shot this movie for $26 million.
Crazy low for a movie as complicated and intricate as it was.
Yeah.
And it's funny watching some of the behind the scenes and
when sorry, not to cut you off, but like the moment that I heard that, I was like, that actually makes sense. They were very efficient about the like locations, right? It's all, we're evoking this multiverse that's like millions and billions and trillions of worlds, but we end up going back to the same places, and the places are so different from one another that you don't notice, hey, every time we go to this world, it's not just the same place in the same world, it's like the same shot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they used the building here in LA for basically most of that office building was all in one building that they just took over. They shot in a laundromat. They did have to build some sets, like their home above the laundromat is a set. I was lucky enough to see a screening at the Directors Guild Theater here in LA, and it was they had the directors and a bunch of the crew, and it was moderated by Jamie Lee Curtis. And so it was so much fun.
You lucky dog.
And it was so interesting to hear them talking about just the challenges of making something for a low budget. But also it's funny because they were able to really explore their vision, which was complex. And like, I can't imagine any big studio like Warner Brothers or Disney doing a movie like this. And in fact, Disney has tried. We can look at Disney's recent like Doctor Strange movies and see how they were trying to be interesting and weird, but also kind of failed to be good story.
Yeah.
But this movie, it had so many surprises for me. Like to have an entire long scene between two rocks.
Yeah.
And originally, I think they were going to do voiceovers for those. And then at some point, they were like, oh, no.
Subtitles only.
Subtitles. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's like the integration of the practical effects with the VFX, unreal. And it reminds us once again, like, yes, VFX are amazing. Yes, you can do amazing things, but the money shot is always in like using as much practical effects as you can in order to get there. To only do what you can't do with practical effects with VFX, because like James Hong, his suit at the end where he traps her against the staircase with this like all this like office equipment that has become like a super suit, right?
Yeah.
And those are all like little chunks of stuff that's strapped onto his body, and it's absolutely fantastic. And like just a little so many of the scenes where you're seeing them like sort of experiencing things in multiple worlds at the same time, using the swirling colored lights actually projected on their face, right? Just something simple like that, rather than doing some like crazy swirly effect that's like drawn on or computer. You just take a light and you literally just like swing it around in front of their face. Like that's genius. That's absolutely genius.
Yeah. I also love, I mean, so much like when Rakakuni, which was originally just a one-off reference, I thought that was a throwaway. I thought Rakakuni was a throwaway joke that was not going to be anything, and instead it became one of the main plot lines. Just like I thought Hot Dog Fingers was like a throwaway joke, and it turns out to be really integral and it pays off to this story. It was. I mean, I am not kidding. Like, there was so much to love about this film, and I'm so glad you loved it. And when I watched it, a couple of things happened to me. I remember because I didn't tell you this last week, and what I realized as I was listening to when I listened to the podcast over and I was listening to myself assign it to you, I didn't mention that I went into this movie completely blank. Like, I had maybe seen a trailer, and I think that I've really enjoyed going into movies with a blank slate, like not knowing what to expect, not doing the thing that I did as a child or as a young person where I was, obsessively looking at spoilers and trying to figure out what was coming up, reading the script ahead of time if I could, all that stuff. I will allow myself to watch one trailer, maybe, just to get a vibe, and then I will look at reviews only in so much as to see if it's getting good reviews or bad reviews. But besides that, I don't really look at anything. And so this movie, I went in completely blank. And so I didn't know that Jamie Lee Curtis was in it. So it took me several minutes to look at this character and be like, oh my God, that's Jamie Lee Curtis. And the same thing with Ke
Kwan?
who, yeah. At some point, he said something like, that's not funny. And I was like, oh my God, it's Short Round.
Yeah.
And
so it's funny. I did know that he was in the movie. I didn't know Jamie Lee Curtis was in the movie, but your general philosophy towards seeing movies now is very much in line with what I have been doing for quite some time. I really dislike, I understand the marketing reasons why previews are so, they give the game away. Because apparently that gets butts in the seats, and that's fine,
that's
right?
Crazy.
Like
and we'll see 4 or 5 trailers for a movie. Like I keep on seeing a new trailer for Megan before before the movie comes out, and I haven't seen it yet, but I want to, but only based on that first trailer. I just watched the first trailer, and that got me in, and I want to see that movie now. But I have enjoyed. I remember, like, what was it, the other multiverse movie that I did love recently was a couple of them. The Spider-Man movies have been great. Like Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect movie. And the newest Spider-Man No Way Home live action one is a great movie. Not perfect, but really great. And I went into both of those completely blind.
Okay.
And so that helped me enjoy those experiences.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy that you like this.
Yeah, I do. Man, I've got more. I want to talk about the cast one by one. Obviously, James Hong is absolutely fantastic. He's apparently been 75 since like 1982. I think
he was 75 in The Golden Child.
Yeah, he was 75 in The Big Trouble in Little China. He's 75 now. He's absolutely fantastic, and like, you can just say that over and over again. Michelle Yeoh is, what's funny is I recognized Jamie Lee Curtis right away. I did not recognize Michelle Yeoh for a good 2 or 3 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, because she was just playing herself.
But she was so, like, beaten down.
Yeah,
like, this is a woman who, like, carries importance and, like, if she's never played an empress, it's a damn shame, because like the woman like projects like power and royalty, right?
Yes,
so to see her like upset at her husband and doing taxes, it just didn't. I was like, oh my God, that's Michelle Yeoh, right?
Right, and being a person who is under the control or the whims of someone else,
yeah,
like where she depends on Jamie Lee Curtis's opinion to live,
Yeah, and, obviously there's a lot for her to do in this movie, and she does it extremely, extremely well. Trying to balance all of the different things on her and balancing the different worlds and everything was just, I can't say enough good about it. Also, so going back to Jamie Lee Curtis, like, if you're Jamie Lee Curtis sitting in your home in wherever she lives, Malibu or whatever, and somebody says, hey, you're going to get to do a kung fu sequence with Michelle Yeoh, right? Like, you sign up.
That's how you
sign up for that movie. Like,
right.
Can you imagine she ever would have thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to be doing a kung fu movie with probably the greatest female practitioner of kung fu, like, in the US in film, right? Like, that's just what an opportunity and what a joy to watch her just like eat it up. I mean, it's so good. And
they were all so game. That's what I love about it too. Like they were all just like completely in this ridiculous.
I mean,
world.
Jamie Lee Curtis, like looking dumpy, right? Like, how do you make Jamie Lee Curtis look dumpy? You know,
right?
Like,
yeah,
she just like inhabits that body and like goes for it, and just
she has been loving this movie too. Like,
I saw the memes going
and...
around of her reacting to Michelle Yeoh's win. Unreal. Like the woman just absolutely lost her mind, and I love her. I've loved her for a really long time. You know what's funny is I've never seen the original Halloween, but you know, obviously,
really?
Obviously Jamie Lee Curtis has done lots and lots of really great stuff, and you know, not to mention the Activia commercials.
Yes, exactly.
It's yogurt for your butt.
It's yogurt for your butt. I when I was the perfect age, I guess, to be viewing True Lies when she did that scene where she was doing the strip,
where she's dancing, right.
Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing forever.
If you are at all not on the end of the Kinsey scale, she'll get you. You know. So let's see. Okay, Hee Kwan, obviously. Okay, so this is like his big comeback role, right?
Yes.
And unreal. Absolutely unreal. The switches between the different characters, like, just there's no hesitation whatsoever. Just there's not like there's, you know, I think a lot of people would have played it with like a sort of a beat, right? But he's able to go from this like character who shares a lot with his Short Round and his character from the Goonies, whose name escapes me. Right? Oh God, is it the racist name? Is that the like
I've only seen Goonies a couple times. I
don't really?
Remember,
oh no, I'm thinking of Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles. Anyways, so he plays a character that kind of feels like an adult version of Short Round, you know, like enthusiastic and fast talking, and you know, sort of living.
He was Data in the Goonies.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. And, you know, and then playing the Alpha Waymond? What's his name?
Waymond, yeah.
Yeah, Waymond.
Yeah,
okay. It's an odd name. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure what the origin of it is.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I thought it was. I thought they were mispronouncing Raymond, but it's Waymond.
Yeah, no, I watch everything with the subtitles on, so I knew it was Waymond. I just couldn't remember what it was. But yeah, you know, his switching into Alpha Waymond is absolutely just unreal. Like, oh God, so good.
Yeah.
Is that? And then Stephanie Hsu, right? So
yeah, I was just gonna say this. Yep.
So, do you know Stephanie Hsu from anything?
Only from like she was in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, but in I was thinking about this Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She very much became kind of an integral part of that show, which I never expected when the character showed up. I thought this is a throwaway, you know, minority character for a show that was criticized for being too white in its first season, and she has really like made that a big part of the show. And
interesting. You know, I think I'm a season or two out from that.
Yeah. If you're not caught up on, she's a really. I mean, you know, obviously the show is about Mrs. Maisel and her thing, but you know, she's stealing half the scenes with Joel now. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So, and she obviously does a really, really good job embodying the character of Jobu. And
my mind was blown the first time I watched it. I went out. I came out of the theater just being like, all I know for sure is that I had an absolutely amazing time watching this movie, and I was moved. Like I cried. I laughed.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I got it all. So when I was able to see it a second time, I picked up a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, where just details and seeing jokes that are set up.
Oh my God, the costuming in this movie, the Jobu spit curl on her forehead. Can you? Amy pointed that out to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like the costuming for Jobu is amazing, but just touch after touch is just right there. So good.
Yeah. Well, okay, great. I mean, I don't know that we need to talk much more about it.
Oh God, really? But
we could.
Yeah, this is another 10 for me, obviously.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think it's a 10 for me too. This is for me a perfect movie.
Yeah.
I haven't, I will watch it again, and I having seen it twice, I can confirm that it was as good the second time as it was the first time, which is a good
really
test.
Exciting.
And so I look forward to seeing it.
You know what? I do have more. The cutting together of this movie. Can you imagine if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want you to edit this movie together. You're going to have to, you're going to do like 6 billion cuts in 4 minutes." It's from, oh God, the
splitting together scenes, like in the same frame.
Yes. Just unreal. I don't know how they shot I presume they shot this, one location. But to recreate those shots well enough that they could either do them straight up, like composite them, or VFX to put them together. Like, unreal.
It's interesting. You should watch some of the behind the scenes on this, because there were moments where, like the moment where she suddenly shows up in the van and the hand comes in and like punches into the window. Yeah. It's actually the director's hand punching into the window, and like they have two different shots that they had to cut together because the two people weren't in the van at the same time, and stuff like that. So they were really doing this like guerrilla filmmakers. And it's interesting, a couple of big names were involved in this. Like, it was produced by the Russo brothers, who directed the Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, and the last 2 Captain America movies, which were both very big. So they're big movie directors, but they come from Community. And maybe Arrested Development too. I'm not sure about the Arrested Development, if that was someone else I'm thinking of. But they're both have their roots in comedy. Okay. And then got given the biggest movies of all time. Mm-hmm. And so now they're able to kind of produce movies like this that are inventive and original, which I think that's also the kind of the wonderful thing about it, is it's, even though it's with this multiverse thing, which is kind of a trope, it's a trend right now, it's a current trope, it does it in such an interesting, imaginative way. And I also love, from a storytelling point of view, how it's so complicated, but you get it. They explain it the perfect amount for you to understand what's going on, even though it makes no sense. But you get it as a viewer enough to just enjoy the ride.
Right. There was never a point in this movie, to call back to our first episode, where I was going, why immortal? How immortal? There was never, I don't care. I don't care how they're getting from multiverse to multiverse. I don't care exactly how the do something weird thing works. The point is like, it hangs together, and I really, really loved it.
It obeys its own rules.
It obeys its own rules. Yep. Okay, I will stop adding things now, but I really cannot encourage you all enough to go see this. I wish that we had gotten an album. One of these days, we're going to get an album and a movie that we both like at the same time, and all right. The world's going to explode or something. But
okay. Well,
we already
did
from
both of us.
Yeah, we already did. I'm sorry to cut you off. Hellraiser and Ghost was also was our first.
Both pretty good album and movie. Yeah.
But anyways, okay, 10s from us both.
Awesome. Well, what for next week?
What for next week? So next week we have oh God, I forgot. Oh no. So HAIM is a family band.
Okay.
And so I thought to myself, maybe let's stick with the family band theme. Are you familiar with the band AJR?
No.
Okay.
I don't know why I thought you were going to recommend like Hanson or something.
For the record,
HJR, what?
AJR.
Arger.
It's definitely AJR. It's their first initials. So it's 3 brothers.
Okay. Oh, nice.
and
Are they cute?
they are cute. Yeah, they're real cute.
Nice.
They have an apartment together in Queens, something like that, and they record all their albums there in their apartment.
Like still, they is
do,
like current?
As far as I know, they are on a major label, but part of their contract is that they get to continue with their recording process of recording in their in their apartment. So I put together. So they have 5 or 6 albums. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure. Amy is a bigger fan of them than I am. I enjoy AJR, but I have not delved deeply into them. So I had her help me put this playlist together. I think there's 11 songs on it.
Okay.
And
nice.
It's throughout their career. They had a pretty big hit last year with the song Bang. So you might have heard that walking through a public place that got played on the radio a fair bit.
Okay. Maybe. I do walk through public spaces occasionally.
I try to avoid it as much as possible.
Well, in the time of COVID, sure.
Yeah. But that's your assignment for next week is AJR.
All right. Well, I look forward to that. I am sneakily going to use our perfect score for Everything Everywhere All at Once to sneak you into the aforementioned multiverse-loving Spider-Man movie.
Guys, he's sticking me with a superhero movie.
So I've told you that I wanted to get you into some superhero movies, and this is one of my favorites. And I think so. It's animated, so it's this is going to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which came out a few years ago. I think 2000. It might have been 2019, might be 18, but not too long ago. And it is it's from the same people who did the Lego Movie. Did you see that by any chance?
I think I did. Yeah.
So it's a really strong writing team. The interesting thing about this that I think will be a good entry point for you, besides coming off of Everything Everywhere, is that Into the Spider-Verse has a very strong music component. They're very deliberate with their music choices, and I think the music plays very well into the movie. So I think you'll appreciate that. And but the other thing I like about it is that you don't need any previous knowledge to go into this movie. All right, you can watch it completely blank, and I think get the same enjoyment out of it. Now, assuming you don't have a predilection against animated movies, which could be the only thing. I mean, and you also have a stated, like, not disdain, but maybe what's less than disdain. You don't. We know you don't like superhero movies. Let me just
I've spent a long time, hearing about, this is the best superhero movie ever, and watching it and not liking it. I suspect an animated movie is probably the way to get me into it, because one of the things that I really dislike about modern superhero movies is how little of them is like real physical stuff that exists in the world. There's a lot of bodies flying, 300 yards.
You don't get the physics, so you don't get that kind of.
You don't get the physics.
So once you discard that completely by making it all fake, then it gives you it makes it easier to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, helps me into the world a little bit.
Comics are a animated form to begin with, right? They're drawings, right? So it's maybe more apropos for the genre. But okay, so that's what I'm going to have you watch, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm going to let you go in as blank as possible. I will say that I do think that one of the other things I like about this movie is that it's about person. It's about the person and emotion. It's not as much about the thing. Well, I'm just going to stop talking. I don't want to say anything more. All right. Well,
wow.
I am excited for next week. I'm excited to listen to AJR. I got it. And I'm excited to have you watch some Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Matt, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Thank you for exposing yourself to me, Travis.
Oh, well, it has been delightful hearing your voice in my ears as always, and I will see you again next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next time.